we were arranged chronologically so that I'm ending up at the end because I was a TEDS doctoral student rather than the people who preceded me who are much elder than me in statesman and learning. I came to study in TEDS the year just after Dr. Ward had retired as a brilliant young educator had taken the reins of the doctoral program. I know who's following me. Dr. Ward, I could never call him Ted, like he invited us to do, was in his first year of a reduced workload, teaching one course less than he had. It was a course titled Educating for Spirituality, and while Perry Downs was then the course instructor, Dr. Ward came in to facilitate a 3-hour Saturday morning session because Dr. Downs had to go out of town. In that 3-hour session, we got the essence of Ted's thinking on that course, and he gave us a couple of handouts, which I still keep in the drawer of my desk. I told him how impressed I was that he had provided, at what he had provided, and he chuckled and he said he had realized in preparing for that session that he could boil down that whole course to that 3-hour session. A lesson I've learned as a provost that I know what faculty mean when they talk. Through the PhD years, I've collected choice articles and handouts from Ted Ward courses, which I've kept in a special folder in my office desk, a folder I often peek at, especially before going to a faculty meeting that has on its agenda a motion for the provost to make a generous donation of his blood. Dr. Ward was a wonderful encourager. He believed in you more than you could believe in yourself. I last met him in early December, and about a month before he passed away, and he told me that he wanted me to meet with some other educators who were developing a program on educating linguists, ever the guru and guide. Once when Margaret and Ted joined my wife Beth and me at Moody for a performance of Handel's Messiah, and when I sought to excuse myself to go and congratulate the faculty and students for their performance, he was very supportive and encouraging, adding that's what I really needed to do. Ted's greatest gift to me came in a class, which has been mentioned here, which was a very Ted Ward-esque simulation and discovery learning. He was sharing in that course about visiting India to consult on a primary education project, and on that particular morning at breakfast had read one of the local papers that had headlined a tremendous power crisis, and that our power plants weren't going to be generating as much electricity as was needed by a growing industrial base as well as an expanding middle class. India and Mumbai in particular were headed for a critical shortfall. Later that morning, the education minister met with a group of consultants and experts that included Ted and informed them that the need of the hour was for more textbooks, and they needed to find and commission authors who could produce material on a number of subjects. Dr. Ward informed us in the class that he had raised his hand and said, even when we find those authors and they write the textbook, you're still going to have a major problem on your hands, Mr. Minister. You're not going to print all those books unless India first solves its problem of generating electricity, and so that you can have power for your printing machines to work. To me, that was a stimulating discovery process. While the problem that he was working on was related to primary education, textbooks and authors, the hurdle wasn't even on the table. It was the need for electricity. I learned something very valuable that day in class, how to think outside the box. Problems and solutions don't necessarily lie in the data you've been provided. Sometimes you have to connect dots and follow the connections to a different path to find the solution. And of course, I'll always remember his devotions before class. Each was unique and so tailored to the topic of the course. In an ethnographic research course, he taught about the Samaritan woman, how I've always understood her as being a prostitute, a person of low morality, an outcast. And yet this outcast had exercised such tremendous influence, maybe akin to the mayor of the town, in being able to bring the whole village to hear Jesus in an extremely short amount of time. And couldn't it be possible that she came to the well to draw water at a time when no one else would be present, not because she was an outcast, but maybe because she was a VIP? Having been married to 5 different men, she may very well have been related to everyone in the village and was an aunt, an in-law, a cousin, and they would have stopped to talk with her, and she would never have been able to complete her task. There were other devotions, each approached through the insight of a social scientist who understood human beings and recognized them as being created in the image of a loving God with whom Ted Ward lives today. Thank you, Margaret, for inviting me to share about the influence that Dr. Ward had in my life. I couldn't have been an educator without him. Thank you.